Hi, I'm J.John.
And I'm Killy John.
And we are at the Evangelists Conference. And in a few minutes, 200 evangelists are going to come into this room. And then later on, we're going to be interviewed by two of those evangelists called
Mark Greenwood and Mark Ritchie.
I can guarantee you there will be a lot of laughter and sacred synergy. Enjoy the interview.
Brilliant. We are really glad, but one or two people were really interested in finding out, Killy, like, how did you become a Christian?
Yeah.
We'd really like to know that, yeah.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Are you okay starting there?
I was brought up in a Christian family. Yeah. I did RE, actually, for A-level, because I was actually a vicar's daughter. So, you know, it came easily. Yes. In those days, it was literally just the Christian faith. And so the Bible became a textbook, really. Okay. So by the time I was 17, really, I'd sort of stopped. It was kind of like head knowledge, but not the heart knowledge. So I went off to college, and, you know, my father was very sweet, sent me off with Bible reading notes and, you know, and all the things that you did, you know, go to this church. I was like, you got to be joking. So I went off to college, and I was not a happy bunny, though, because when you've been brought up in a particular way, you know what's missing. There's something missing. Anyway, I was home for the vacation. I was doing hotel management at the time, and my father said, you can set up a coffee shop in the church hall. And so I thought, well, that'd be a nice idea, but I had to share the church hall with the overseas outreach.
Oh, no.
No.
I mean, nobody wants that, do they?
No, not really, no. And the first thing, I was so impressed with all these students my age giving up their summer holidays to tell people about Jesus. I was like, really? Why would anyone do that? And anyway, so I had to hand the keys over. So obviously I got chatting to the leader as we handed over the keys and everything. And, you know, he kept saying, you know, come along to some of the meetings. I was like, no, I'm really busy. I've got to do all the cleaning and all the laundry and make the cakes and all this sort of thing. And anyway, I did go. It was a Holy Spirit moment. Sat down, said to my mum, actually, I'm going to go to this meeting. And it was like everything. The drama, the talk, the worship. It was like my whole life being laid before me. And there was a peer, and forget the overseas students, I was the first one up there. Wow. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So then the leader followed me out, and then he fell in love with me and married me.
Oh, J.John, the leader!
Was he the leader?
Oh,
you were the leader?
Yeah.
Is that right? I did not know that.
So when I met Killy, she obviously comes from generations of missionaries, and she wasn't interested. And I invited her to come. She says, no, I don't want to come. I said, well, come anyway. She says, I haven't got any time. I can't come. I said, well, come anyway. She says, listen, I don't actually want to come. I said, well, come anyway. You know, and that's the thing, isn't it? No, if you ask somebody to come and they say no, don't stop. You know, because she was sitting on the fence, so we needed to electrocute the fence. And she came, and I think with you, though, it was a bit like this brand new radio.
Yeah.
And that day, that night, you got plugged in, and almost like the years of your upbringing just kicked in.
Wow.
So, like the faith that you had before, did you still believe in God, even though you were brought up in it and then wanted to give it? There's still a belief in God.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you think back, because I've often thought back and sort of analysed how was it, and definitely as a child, I remember praying. I remember having a relationship with Jesus. And then there came a point where it wasn't that I was an atheist.
Right.
It just wasn't relevant.
Okay, right.
And I think that was probably...
Did you think much about God in that time?
No,
at all, or was it just empty?
not really. I knew I wasn't living life in a good way.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was kind of like, I wasn't happy because of that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, yeah.
Wow, I did not know that.
Did you
know that?
Yeah, I did actually.
Oh, great.
Yeah, because I listen when she talks.
Yeah.
John, what about your own story? I think a lot
Yes.
of people have heard your story, but there'll be a lot that hasn't. I mean, like, allegedly, Andy Economides led you to Jesus. But tell us a little bit about how that happened.
I met Andy my first day of college. And the interesting connection was, as I remember it, was that Andy came up to me and said, "Are you Greek?" And I said, "Yeah, I am. Are you Greek?" So there was that cultural connection. And I discovered that he was a Christian, but I didn't know what that meant.
Okay.
And then he gave me a Bible. And we did Bible studies.
Brilliant.
I mean, didn't call it that.
No.
But he basically, every week, he helped me to understand the message of the Bible.
Were there key moments in that where you think there was a shift in your mind that you can recollect, or was it just...
Oh, well, the tipping point was when he showed me Revelation 3:20, Jesus stands at the door and knocks. That was, for me, the tipping point. And he said, "Have you heard Jesus knocking on your door?" And I said, "Well, where's the door? I don't know where the door is, you know." And I think Andy said something like, "Don't worry about the door. Just ask Jesus to break the door down." I think sometimes God uses just the basics, doesn't it? And I knelt down beside my bed that night, 9th of February, 1975, and I said, "Jesus, if it's you that's knocking on my door, break this door down."
Yeah.
And the light came on.
And very quickly, you were out and about sharing your faith, weren't you? You didn't hold back, did you?
Well, it was
You were
the
full on
next
it.
day. The next day, again, you know, something shifted, something changed, but you don't at that time have the vocabulary.
No.
You don't know,
Yeah.
but you're aware that something's different.
Yeah.
And where I lived and where I went to college, it was about a mile, and I used to walk. And I walked past this homeless man, and I said, "Oh, have you had breakfast?" So this is the day after. "Have you had breakfast?" He said, "No, I've not had breakfast." I said, "Oh, do you want breakfast?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Well, I'll take you for breakfast." And I said to him, "Where do you hang out?" He said, "Well, you know where you met me, that's where I hang out." I said, No, where do you normally hang out?" He goes, "Well, you know where you met me, that's where I hang out." And I was trying to process this. Wait a minute. If he's telling me the truth, that means Monday to Friday, September, October, November, December, January, February, I walked past him and I never saw him.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, "Oh my word, I'm seeing homeless people." You know, I'd never spoken to a homeless person before. And then I went to college, and I said to Andy that I'd received Jesus. And he said, "Great, let's meet later on today." And I went to my lecture, sat next to my friend Richard Gamble. I said, "Richard, I became a Christian last night." And I said, "Are you a Christian?" He says, "I don't know." I said, "What do you mean you don't know? I'm Greek, and I know, and you're English. You don't know. You should know." And then I told him about the door. You've got to open the door.
Did he say, "Where's the door?"
No, so he prayed to receive Christ in the lecture room.
The day after.
Yeah, well, I hadn't joined the church yet to find out you weren't supposed to do this. And then I introduced Richard to Andy, and the three of us went to the student union to register the Christian Union. And Andy became the president, Richard was the treasurer, and I was the secretary.
Wow. So when you preached your very first sermon, your very first evangelistic sermon, can you remember it? And was it any good?
Well, okay, I do remember it, and you know about this,
Yeah,
don't
I
you?
do.
So I went to this house party in the summer, and it was a sci-fi house party for young people, and it was a week, and I was at that, and then I got onto the team, and the guy running it asked me to give one of the talks, and And these talks at this house party were actually very simple, break down the gospel talks. And but I knew how to get the plane off, but I didn't know how to land it.
Yeah, just bring it straight down.
Yeah,
That's what you do.
So then the guy, Kenneth Habersham, came up and put his hand around me while I was still speaking. And like, brother, it's time. I didn't know how to land it, and you've got to be taught how to communicate.
Yeah. Could you tell in that one talk that you were going to become a renowned world-class communicator?
Well, I knew then, and I still know now, that I'm just a donkey. and I love that story of the donkey carrying Jesus into Jerusalem. Because the donkey thought it was all about him, and he couldn't believe it. Everyone's applauding the donkey. It's the first outing in his life, and he thinks, this is amazing. I love life. I love people cheering me. And actually, this is incredible. They don't want me even to get my feet dirty, and they're laying down all their garments. And we all know, don't we, what happened to the donkey. You never ever heard of him again after Jerusalem. No, I've always known and felt privileged to carry Jesus.
Killy, can you remember the first time you heard him preach? And was it any good?
Yeah, no, he was really good.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yes, you can remember. No, it wasn't any good.
Well, that was the
by
time
the
she
time-
received Christ.
So by the time, yes, that's right, actually.
So your very
Yeah.
first preach, and you led Killy to Jesus?
No, it wasn't the very first preach.
No.
First one she heard.
No.
Stick with the
I had-
questions.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm getting a bit...
No, you're getting
We're
really
linking questions together. There's a thread.
All right, I'm so
No.
sorry.
No.
It was... Tell me then, what was it? It was the...
So it was at this Cambridge International Outreach.
okay.
That's where I first heard him.
Right.
Yeah.
And was he any good?
He was really good. I mean, it was. I responded, so it obviously spoke to me.
Yeah.
But I don't think we ever really imagined
No.
how things would go. We just thought, well, we'll just serve the Lord 1 year.
Yeah, that was it, really,
Yeah.
wasn't it? And those early years, like when we got married, I mean, I was doing. I think in those days, I didn't really know. It's like, I'd rather burn out for Jesus than rust out for Jesus. And I started doing university missions, and they were a week, 6 days actually. Leave Monday, get back late Saturday night, have Sunday off. Leave Monday, get back Saturday night, have Sunday off. Leave Monday, get back late Saturday night. And I did 102 university college missions.
Oh, man.
And we just thought that was normal.
Yeah.
We, didn't have mobile phones
Could
in
I
those
just say we
days.
muddled through?
We kind of muddled through. But then the bank took away your bank card.
Well, now I'm interested.
Okay, this isn't our finest moment, and I don't think we've ever told this story ever.
Oh, well, this is the
Go on.
best moment to do it.
Go on.
You've probably never told the story about throwing the salad spoons at an
No.
eye, so it's first.
So, where do I begin? So I had a job, full-time job, setting up a coffee shop in Nottingham Library, actually.
Okay.
And it wasn't the best job in the whole wide world. And to be fair, when the police came in and said...
Wow, that escalated quickly.
said, there's people smoking drugs in... Because you could smoke at that time in restaurants and things. There are people, and we have to monitor it, and we're going to come in plain clothes. I thought, I don't need to be doing this job. So actually, I just said to the guy in a very polite way, I'm not doing this job anymore, and left. But basically, we were reliant on my salary. So consequently...
Because I was earning book tokens.
Things...
Come on.
I mean, they were a whole week, and the students would give a £5 book token.
But anyway,
Occasionally a £10 one.
things went downhill quite rapidly. No, we weren't ever destitute because the Lord provides, but they did take away my bank card.
And then we were in rented accommodation. So I said, "Oh, Killy, it'll be so much better if we own our own house." And it's like, well, how? Oh, I'll go and get a mortgage. So I go to see this mortgage guy, and he says, he goes, "Mr. John, what I've got to do is fill out this form, okay? And there's 10 questions, 10 boxes, and if you get 6 or more ticks in the boxes, you can get a mortgage." I said, "Oh, straightforward. Great." So he asked the 10 questions, went there. He goes, "Mr. John, you don't have any ticks." So you don't even have one tick.
Just a pig.
He said, "Do you have a salary?" "No." "Where'd you get your money from?" "Well, we asked Jesus." You see, "Has your wife got a salary?" "No." "Have you got savings?" "No." "Have you got anyone that could help you?" "No." "No." "So you're going through all these?" No. So he says, "You can't have a mortgage." I said, "Oh, please give me a mortgage." He said, "Mr. John, I can't give you a mortgage." I said, "Oh, please give me a mortgage." He said, "Mr. John, could you please leave?" So I'm like, I get up now and I'm beginning to leave like this. I said, "Please, please give me a mortgage." He says, "I cannot give you a mortgage." So I'm by the door now. He goes, "Please leave, Mr. John." I said, "Please give me a mortgage. Please. Oh, please give me a mortgage." The guy goes, "All right then." Right. The amazing thing is, he gave us 100% mortgage, and our repayments were cheaper than the rent.
Brilliant.
So, roll on many years to just maybe
four years ago.
This guy comes up to us in Nottingham at this thing you were speaking at, and he goes, "Do you remember me?" to John, like this. And John was like, "Well, you look familiar, but you know." He said, "I was the guy who gave you the mortgage." I mean, you can't make that up. And so I said to him, I said, "Is it true?" I said, "Is it true?" Because, you know.
Yeah, Killy goes...
Can I just say, let's be honest, in a room full of evangelists,
Yes.
there's a little bit of...
Yeah. She thought... No, so Killy, you know, evangelistic, all that. So Killy says to him, "Can I hear your version?" And...
It was exactly the same.
There you
It was unbelievable.
And he wasn't a Christian then, but had subsequently
Christian.
become a Christian.
That is amazing.
I know. Christ.
That is brilliant.
Is that how you do your appeals now? Oh, please.
Yeah,
Please become a Christian. No, please.
Compel them.
No, could you please become a Christian?
Compel them.
Yes, come on.
So just really quickly before we move on, what if somebody in the room is like financially massively challenged, they're stepping out for God, and they're in a situation where money is really tight? What would you, I mean, what a great story, but speak faith into us that are like living by faith, trying our best to serve God, but the money's really difficult.
Yeah. No, it is hard, and I think it's even harder, particularly in these times. But you know, God is so faithful. Yeah. So I mean, it's little things, isn't it? So we had this home group in our house, and you know, literally, we were a bit dire. There wasn't much biscuits or coffee or anything, and people would just come round with what you needed, and it was just incredible. I mean, it really was incredible. And then one day, a guy turned up, didn't he? And he said, "I've bought you this," and it's the £1 notes. He'd bought 129.
129.
I still remember it. £1 notes, and he said, "I just felt the Lord wanted me to give you this." I mean, it's just stuff like that. It was just amazing.
No, but he came and gave it to you. I was away on a mission, and I came back. I didn't know about this. No. And you said how many had come to the Lord.
Yeah. And it was 129. I mean, it's like... And I mean, back then, we're going back to the 80s now. And it was like...
I'm gone.
A lot of money.
Pull yourself together, man. That's incredible.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, the thing is...
Oh, man.
If you know you're doing what God wants you to do, He will provide. I mean, that doesn't mean be silly and, you know, and
Unwise.
and be unwise, but it does mean just keep putting one step forward and, yeah.
This may be impossible to ask, but how much do you think being generous is linked to seeing God provide?
Oh, do you know, I think a number of different things. Humility, holiness, and generosity, I think, are all interlinked. And I get various young evangelists wanting to come and see me, and over the years, I've seen quite a lot of people, and they'll come and I'll say, "Oh, how can I help you?" And the conversation goes a bit like this: "Oh, I want to do what you do." And I say, "Oh, well, what do you think I do?" and they kind of think, "Oh, I play football in the Premier League." That's what they think, And they play football, but they'd rather play it in the Premier League. So I say, "Well, actually, you only need two things to do that." And they're like, "Really?" I said, yeah, two things. One, humility. I'm not saying, "Oh, I'm humble," but I know this. Humility is to receive praise and to pass it on to God untouched. And if we don't have that humility, I think we're losing it. Yeah. Holiness, being clean for God. The beatitude, the pure shall see God. The Greek word pure, katharos. The root meaning of that word is no mixed motives.
Wow.
So who are the people going to see God? The people with no mixed motives. And I would say humility and holiness are linked with generosity, because we're serving a generous God, isn't it? And when you realize that you're just a steward, a guardian of time, talents, and treasure, then you want to share it. You want to give it away.
Of course.
Yeah, and I think as well, because when we were starting out, people were very generous to us, and we sort of saw that and were so grateful that I think we just out of that as well, didn't we?
Yeah,
we just
we did.
Sort of,
Gratitude.
yeah.
I know. Do you know, some years ago, this guy in Ireland, I was leading a mission in Bangor, a Just 10 mission in Bangor, and this guy in Ireland contacted me, and he said, "Oh, I'm an evangelist, and can I come and see you?" So I said, "Well, I'm coming every week for 10 weeks. Why don't you come to the hotel I'm staying at, and I'll meet you?" So he comes over, and I said, "Well, what's your story?" He said, "Well, I'm an evangelist, but I'm a fireman." And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, but I really feel it's time for me to kind of step out." I said, "Yeah." So I said, "What's the problem? Why don't you step out?" He says, "Well, I won't have a salary." I said, "So? What's the problem?" And I said to him, "Well, how much are you earning currently?" And at that time, he was earning £25,000. So I said, "Listen, mate," I said, "you just need 25 people to give you £1,000 each." And he's kind of processing this, and I felt the Lord say to me, "Give him £1,000." And I'm like, I don't want to. I mean, I'm talking a personal £1,000, from Killy, and it's like we didn't really have that much in the bank account, and he wants me to give £1,000. I said, "I'm going to give you £1,000. It was the days of the checkbook, and I had the checkbook with me, got it out, wrote £1,000. I said, "I'm the first."
Wow.
I said to him, "If you don't become a full-time evangelist, I want it back."
Fair enough.
But when I was at theological college, and we were taken, our tutor took our tutorial group to a monastery. I'd never been to a monastery before. And we met this monk who kind of did a little guided retreat. And the first thing he did was he took our group into the church, and he said to us, "I just want you to sit here, be still, and know that he is God." And he says, "I'll be back in 2 hours." And I remember I'm like sitting there going, what's going on? It's like, you can't just sit here. He wants us to sit here for 2 hours. What? And not have a Mars bar and a coffee? And not have a chat? What are we going to do? He wants us to be still and know that God is God. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And then he invited me to go back. And I started spending a day a month in the monastery. Every month. It would be in my diary. And I went for 17 years.
Wow.
And every month, a day a month. And I tell you, it got to the point where I could just be in the presence of Jesus all day. It's what Brother Lawrence, in his little booklet, practicing the presence of God.
Yeah. Because I've started to experiment with silence because of moments spent with you when we've been on retreat and everything. There's a whole lot of us. I'm from a Pentecostal background, a lot of shouting and praise and worship and noise. And there have been these moments where you've guided us into this more powerful silence. And so I've started to have weekly moments of silence that are really been really incredible, and I've found that it's changed me spiritually, and I've actually been able to do spiritual warfare in silence, sometimes more powerfully than some of my background where it was screaming and shouting, and I know I just wanted to honor you with this, but those retreats we're all mucking around, laughing and everything, and there'll be a time when you'll say, okay boys, mainly us. You're like, okay, Mark.
To be fair.
It is mainly us. Okay, lads, enough now. We're just going to have a few moments in the presence of God. And we have these powerful times. And you are someone who's chased after God's presence. And I just wanted to honor you because there are times where you really do just lead us to a place where it's just so sacred and powerful and beautiful. Just thank you.